Hi, this is Dr. Mark Sanna, and welcome to this edition of Level Up. And this is the podcast that helps you bring your practice up to the next level. I'm here with Roy Buzz Korth, and Roy Buzz, who we call him,
Hey
love to
there.
call him Buzz, is, I think, one of the top regen specialists in the country. I've gotten to know him. I got to use some of his products. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. He's super knowledgeable, but I think is really, really important is he's actually a practicing chiropractor up in Ohio. And he's doing exactly the things that he's going to talk about and teach you. So he knows what works, what doesn't work, the difference between the different tools that are available to your in your practice. And so, Buzz, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. I hope I can help out some people on here. And what I want to focus on today is I want to talk about platelet-rich plasma and another plasma protein called alpha-2 macroglobulin. These are both considered autologous, which basically means the providers will make it from the patient's own blood,
Yeah.
and they're both regenerative in nature. But they definitely do different things. So I kind of want to talk through the differences, and there are other PRP and A2M kits on the market. I kind of want to talk through some of that stuff too, just to make sure they're making the right choice for their patients.
That'd be perfect. Thank
So
you.
we'll start with platelet-rich plasma. Most people have heard of that. And if you're going to be doing regen med in your practice, you really want to have this tool in your toolbox, whether you're treating joint pain, aesthetic use, sexual dysfunction. Really, you can use it in all those different applications. So what I want people to understand, though, is that when you're making these products, PRP or A2M, you have to collect the person's blood, and the tube quality is very important in what you're collecting the blood with, and also the filtration, because these are all basically where you're taking a person's blood and you're filtering it down to make another product, and the filtration is very, very important too. And the first thing you have to kind of understand when you get in this space, and I didn't even know this, is the majority of blood tubes on the market are what they call blood collection tubes. And blood collection tubes aren't designed for re-injection. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but if you go to LabCorp and you get blood, those tubes are designed to collect the blood, make sure it doesn't clot up, and then go to some type of lab where they do analysis and they throw out the trash. It's never designed to be put back into a human being's body.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, a lot of the kits on the market, or a lot of doctors out there who are doing like homemade kits, are using these blood collection tubes. And that's a problem because those blood collection tubes contain these things called pyrogens. And basically, what a pyrogen is, it can be silica, it can be rubber particles, these other toxins that are cytotoxic. And obviously, if we're trying to inject things into people's bodies to make them more anabolic or to help them heal, you don't want to put cytotoxins in there. That kind of defeats the
Yeah.
whole purpose of it. And I didn't, and I'm guilty of this myself. I did it for about 4 years in my practice, and I had mixed results. And once I kind of got behind the science, I realized I was making a mistake. So don't feel bad if you're doing it. But I'll show you how you can check and see if your tubes are pyrogen free. And then the second thing I talk about is the filtration. And when anyone does PRP, and when you talk to providers, a lot of providers will say, "Yeah, I've used PRP in the past. Results weren't that great." Or a lot of times you'll hear, "Well, there's a lot of patient discomfort." And what you have to understand is the platelets in PRP, you should never have patient discomfort. It doesn't hurt. Okay. But where you do get discomfort and increased inflammation is if you don't have proper filtration when you're making platelet poor plasma or A2M, and you get red or white blood cell infiltration. And those red or white blood cells get into the blood. Because if you re-inject those red and white blood cells into the body, it will cause an inflammatory response. It will cause pain. So PRP does not hurt. A2M does not hurt. But if you don't filter the red and white blood cells out properly, that's when you're going to have patient discomfort. Okay. So a lot of doctors out there that I've worked with, they're using these tubes here. These are BD vacuotainers. They're very inexpensive. And a lot of doctors will make their own homemade PRP. But the big problem you have with that, if you look down here to my little arrow here, it's not pyrogen free. Okay. So it's not designed for re-injection. Okay. So any tube you buy that has pyrogens will have this warning on here that basically means do not re-inject into the human body. But you can see it's real small. Most people don't know that. So that's why it's not a good idea to use any of these blood collection types tubes. You want to make sure you're using tubes that were designed for re-injection. Obviously, they're more expensive, but they're safer for use. Okay. And what are these pyrogens in silica? Well, you can see under magnification what these look like, right?
Yep.
And here's different, vacuette tubes, venoject tubes, another very common tube that people use, neo tubes, and you can see what these are. So obviously, if you're injecting into like an arthritic knee or a chronic tendonitis, you're not going to be helping the situation. Okay. And as I said, I was guilty. I did it myself. So, um, the tubes we use in our kits obviously are pyrogen free. You're not going to have this and you'll never have a reaction. People aren't going to have any discomfort afterwards, and you are going to get that anabolic effect.
Beautiful.
Another thing I see quite a bit is a lot of the PRP kits on the market have these gel layers. Okay. And you can see here's an example one here, this gel here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And while the gel does make it very simple to do, it's really not effective for a couple of reasons. Number one, the gel doesn't do a good job of capturing all the red and white blood cells. It just can't. It's not a filter. It's a trap, right? But it doesn't work the same as a real filter. Okay. So, and what's going to happen is when you inject red and white blood cells, you're going to have people that get discomfort, which we don't want.
Yeah.
Um, the other problem with this is, once again, because it's really not a true filtration, it also is going to capture some of the platelets, and we want as many platelets as possible. And if you're not filtering it, it's just impossible to have a gel layer do this properly. So you're going to lose some of the strength of the product. And then many of these gel layers are also made of polyester and other cytotoxic materials. So at the end of the day, any gel layer you're using is going to be less effective than a true filtration system. Okay. And with our kits, it comes with real filters that once you make your PRP or ATM, you run it through a filter, and that filter is going to not capture your platelets, but it's going to capture all the red and white blood cells. So you'll never have a patient that gets a PRP or ATM procedure that has any discomfort whatsoever. Okay. And then the final thing I want to talk about with platelet-rich plasma, and I think this gets lost sometimes, is the platelet count really counts.
Mm.
At the end of the day, the more platelets you have, the more anabolic activity you have, the better it's going to help somebody heal. So the more platelets you can get, the better the results are going to be. Okay. And I think that gets lost in translation. And I think people, will equate all PRP kits are the same, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. Okay. I mean, I think the analogy I use with you, Mark, is, we can go make a glass of orange juice. You can make a glass of orange juice, and I can make a glass of orange juice. And you can take a half an orange and squeeze it into that orange juice and mix a bunch of water with it, and that's orange juice. Or I could take 6 oranges and smash it up and it'd be pure orange juice. They're
Yep.
both orange juice, but they taste a lot different. Okay. And the same thing's going to be with your PRP. You really need to have two things. Number one, the more blood you pull, the more platelets you're going to have in it. It's that simple. If you only pull 1 tube of blood and someone else pulls 8 tubes of blood, obviously that 8 tubes is going to give you the opportunity or the potential to get more platelets. And the second thing is you really have to double spin your PRP to make the magic happen. When you single spin the PRP kit, I don't care what kit you're using, the max concentration you're going to get is going to be 1.3. Maybe if you spin it really fast, you can get to a 3x concentration, and the concentration really counts.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the data, I really like to categorize patients into 2 categories. You have people that are 35 and below, and you have people that are 35 and above. 35 and below, we'll say like a teenager, for example. Sometimes on those people, you can get away with less platelets because their blood has many more platelets per ml, right? So
Yeah.
with those ones there, maybe some of those single spin kits would be okay on a teenager, but the majority of patients I'm treating in my practices, and I'm sure your people are too, are the 35 plus. As you get older, you're more likely to get injured.
Yep.
Those people, and especially, I think we talked about this too. When you're doing cash procedures, Mark, they have to work.
Yeah, exactly.
So, if you're doing insurance and it doesn't work, it doesn't matter if it didn't really cost me anything. But if you're charging someone $1,000 for PRP or, 3,500 for A2M and it doesn't work, you're going to have not only someone who's unhappy with you, but they're going to spread the word.
My buddy Mitch Malley says your income equals your outcomes.
100%. And the good news is when it works, guess what? Those same people feel justified in spending the money, and they're much better referral sources than insurance people.
For
So
sure.
it's just a different animal. When I had a huge insurance practices for years, just like everybody, when insurance paid really good. Back then, everyone had coverage, and if it worked or it didn't work, obviously we wanted to do the best, but if it didn't work, it wasn't as big a deal. Now I'm almost 100% cash. Like the stuff I do has to work. But the good news is cash patients are also much better referring patients, in my opinion.
Yep.
So this is really important to keep in mind. And kind of going back to here, when you get to these people above 35 years of age, you really need at least 7 to 11x concentration of platelets. And the only way you can get there is if you're using a double spin PRP kit. It's mathematically impossible with single spin. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for example, I put down here, like a lot of the kits on the market will give you 2 tubes, which if you spun them one time, will give you 1.3 to 2.2 concentration of platelets. Okay.
Yep.
If you really think about that, Mark, that's not much better than taking a person's blood out and injecting it back in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So you can see
Yep.
not that effective. The magic happens when you double spin it. So with our kits, you're pulling 8 tubes of blood, which is 68 mLs of blood. You spin it one time, and then you're grabbing all the platelets out of that and spinning it again. And that's when you're going to get the magic. That's when you get that 8 to 12.9 concentration, which is over 10 billion platelets per procedure. That's when you get the anabolic effect. That's when you can change the joint and make things really start to, get the body to heal itself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So very important to keep, the platelets do count. Now, this next thing here I want to talk about is alpha 2 macroglobulin.
Yep.
And one thing I hear people all the time is, what's the FDA think about this, or is it okay? What's interesting, this is Peter Marks. He's the head of the CBER with the Center for Biologic Evaluation with the FDA. And this is what he had to say about A2M, which I thought was pretty interesting.
In that case,
Let me turn this up a little bit. If not, I can send this again.
alpha 2M for using it to shut down osteoarthritis in joints. Very interesting idea. I haven't heard of that before, but knowing it's really funny. Alpha 2M was one of the first proteins I ever worked with when I was a graduate student. So I actually know a little bit about it. It actually is kind of an interesting idea to shut down osteoarthritis in joints.
So shutting down osteoarthritis in joints. Okay. How is this even possible? Okay. And basically, just to keep everyone on the same page here, you make this very similar to making platelet-rich plasma, but it's totally different. Okay. Because we're capturing this A2M, which is basically, it's a protein. It's alpha-2 macroglobulin is a protein. It's produced by your liver. It's actually the largest circulating protein in your bloodstream. But the issue is it's so large it can't get into your joints or where we need it to go. So let me explain what's going on with osteoarthritis or degenerative joint disease. So basically what we're looking at here is anyone who has osteoarthritis, degenerative joint disease, these are always caused by these proteins called proteases. Okay. And what happens is someone has a surgery, overuse, trauma, your body releases these proteases into the joint. And it serves a good purpose. These proteases are like little Pac-Men. They go into the joint and they're there to clean up the damage or clean up the tissue after we'll say like a surgery. Like a typical thing your people will see. Anyone doing regen med will do knees because not everyone, a high percentage of people get knee arthritis as they get older.
Yeah.
And a lot of the worst cases your doctors are going to see are people that have had a meniscus surgery is a typical one. They had a meniscus surgery at 35 or 40 years of age. They come to your clinic 10 years later and the knee is destroyed with arthritis. Well, what happened? Well, the surgery was good, right? So they cleaned up the meniscus in there, but the trauma of the surgery caused the body to release those proteases into that joint to clean up the damage and clean up all the garbage in there after the surgery. The problem, though, Mark, is what happens is those proteases, once they're done cleaning up, they're trapped in the joint, these proteins. And when they can't get out of there and there's nothing left to clean up, they start to eat away at the joint. And if you look at the diagram here, when the proteases outnumber the protease inhibitors that you have in a joint, that's when it becomes catabolic, and that's when you have degenerative joint disease or osteoarthritis.
Got it.
Where does A2M come in? So A2M is that other, and you can see here, this is not what they look like, by the way, but it gives you a size. Proteases are very large. They can't get out of the joint. And you can see A2M is much larger, and it's so large it can't get into the joint. But what you can do with our convenience kit is you take a person's blood and you filter and you capture that A2M molecule out of the person's blood. And then they would use a needle to put that into the joint, and it's 27 gauge needle, about the size of an acupuncture needle, into the joint. And when you do that, the A2M binds with the proteases and breaks them down. So it literally stops arthritis at the molecular level. In all my years of practice, nothing is more effective than A2M for osteoarthritis. Because whether you do, so think of it this way. We can go back a diagram if you want to. So you have these proteases eating the joint. So at this point here, if the patient wants to save the joint, you have to stop these proteases. So you could put PRP in here, right?
Yeah.
And PRP could help the tissue outgrow how fast the proteases are eating it for a while. But if you don't get rid of the proteases, the arthritis always comes back. And the same thing if someone's going to use some type of birth tissue, like a Wharton's jelly extract or something, the same exact thing. You can put that Wharton's jelly in there, and it'd be like putting fertilizer on a garden that the beetles are eating. The garden can outgrow the beetles for a while, but if you don't get rid of the beetles, eventually the arthritis comes back.
Yeah.
So a more logical approach is to go in there and remove the cause of the arthritis, and that's what A2M allows us as providers to do.
And I know, Buzz, you're very big on combination therapies.
Yeah, so a logical approach to this, if someone comes in, I always ask the patient, "Do you want to save the joint?" And they say, "Yeah." I say, "Listen, you only have one option if you have osteoarthritis. We got to get rid of the cause." And that diagram I just showed you there, I'll show them. I explain it. Every patient gets it, and you start there. Now, if the arthritis is really bad, it's kind of like a garden. So we use the analogy a little bit. So we know beetles are eating the garden quicker than the garden can grow. So step one is we got to get rid of the beetles. Okay.
Yeah.
But if the beetle's done a bunch of damage, we might want to consider, depending on the person's ability to heal, do we want to add some fertilizer in there after we got rid of the beetle so the garden grows back? And that's where someone would use, and there's lots of tools we have, PRP, Wharton's jelly extract. Your docs probably have a lot of other cool tools like class 4 lasers, shockwave. Those are all things that can help the tissue grow back, but you got to get rid of the cause first.
Yes.
Okay. And that's where that comes in. And then the final thing I want to show you here that comes with our PRP and A2M kits is the ability to make a bioscaffolding, okay? And just to be clear, when you're making our PRP or you're making our A2M, you're going to have leftover platelet-poor plasma. And if you take that platelet-poor plasma and you heat it, what it does is it changes the conformation of the protein. So basically, it's going to take that platelet-poor plasma and make a gel out of it. And then what you do, and this is all included with our kits, there's nothing extra to buy. You're going to get the A2M that you've made or the PRP you've made, and you mix it with the gel, and you're injecting the gel that's infused with PRP or the gel that's infused with A2M. And the reason you want to do that, Mark, though, is if you inject just PRP or A2M, it gets absorbed very quickly by the body. And that's why a lot of people that do PRP and A2M procedures are doing, one procedure every other week or once a month because it goes away pretty quickly. The bioscaffolding takes 3 to 6 months to break down. We actually sell a lot to aesthetics doctors that use it as a filler. That's how slow it breaks down. And so we say 3 to 6 months, depending on the person's metabolism. But I'll show you what it looks like here. And this is what you're injecting. And once again, this is a 27 gauge needle here. So there's no patient discomfort. Remember, there's no white blood cells, so no pain afterwards either. But you can see this gel is much better than injecting just PRP or A2M alone.
Oh, yeah.
And this is included. So everyone will be using this. It's included with the kit. So that allows you to only do one procedure with A2M or PRP instead of multiple procedures. And that's also really good if your docs are doing any neuropathy.
Yeah.
Neuropathy, you're not even injecting into a joint. So that's why those people are usually doing every other week injections. When you're putting the PRP or A2M with the scaffolding, once again, that'll last in there. And it's like a China doll slowly releasing the A2M molecule or PRP over time, at least 3 months, up to 6 months. So you're getting a much better effect. Okay.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, it's real, both of our kits use tubes that are only designed for re-injection, which is very important. Both of our kits also come with real filtration. So it literally comes with a filter to make sure all the red and white blood cells are out of there. We're not depending upon a gel coat to, kind of magically catch those things. With our kit, you're going to get the industry's highest platelet count. You'll get at least 10 billion platelets with our double spin PRP kit, which is if you read the research, that's where you want to be. Both these kits are easy and fast to use. To make A2M, once you've done it a couple times, you can do it in about 15 minutes. You spin the blood 8.5 minutes and run it through a filter. Very simple to make A2M. Double spin PRP takes a little bit longer because you're spinning it for 8.5 minutes, grabbing off the buffy coat, that's where all the platelets are at, and spinning it again for another 8.5 minutes.
Yeah. So
it does take a little bit longer, but you're going to have a real high quality product. And both the kits also come with everything you need to make this bioscaffolding, which you don't have to, but I strongly recommend it because it's free and it's going to really make the products much more effective. Okay. And all of our components are cleared by the FDA for patient use. Now, I want to be clear. This is not FDA approved for what we're using it for, but they're FDA cleared. So with your providers, it's very important that they, don't make any claims and they're using consent forms. So you can use PRP, you can use A2M on patients, but don't run ads saying, hey, we use A2M to cure arthritis, or we use PRP to fix erectile dysfunction.
Right.
Those claims, it may be beneficial. Here's the research, sign the consent form, and they're good to go.
Yep.
So, any other questions about any other stuff there, Mark?
No. So I'm sure this is eye-opening for a lot of folks, right, who are doing single spin, who don't know about scaffolding, but it's a lot of people, right?
Yeah. And all I can tell you people is try it one time. And another little caveat I want to throw in there too with A2M. A2M, as good as it is binding with proteases, it also binds with cytokines.
So tell people what cytokines cause, because this is the painful stuff, right?
Yeah. So what happens when you get injured? Your body releases cytokines first, and the reason your body releases cytokines is it's kind of like your check engine light. Cytokines are proteins that are released to tell you don't use the joint, and the way they tell you don't use the joint is it makes your joint hurt, right? So cytokines are what cause pain. Okay. A2M binds with cytokines just as effectively as it binds with proteases. So when you use A2M on patients, 100% of the time people will get pain relief, and usually very quickly within hours. Okay. Which once again is really good, especially if you're charging cash. Because when people are, which is the opposite of using PRP that has pyrogens, and they call you the next day and say, my knee's killing me because it had the white and red blood cells in it. Yeah. But when you use A2M, you literally, I've had people walk in my office on a crutch or a cane and walk out with no pain. Now that's not every time, and they're not fixed.
Right. And that's a really important point, because they feel better, but they got to know this is not the regeneration yet. This is not the healing yet. This is the stopping.
Yeah. So here's another warning though. If you are selling as a package like I do, when someone comes in with severe arthritis, I'll say, listen, we got to get rid of the cost first, and then we're going to add fertilizer. You need to sell that as a package.
Right.
Because if you try to bring them back in 6 weeks and sell them PRP and they have no pain, good luck.
Yeah.
And most of people will be pain-free after 6 weeks. So you need to sell it as a package, whether you're using PRP or wart jelly extract or whatever you're using. I strongly recommend sell it up front, because when you bring them back, a high percentage of people will have no pain, and that's a tough sell when they're not having pain.
Yeah, for sure. So super cool. So you mentioned cytokines, so I'm going to just piggyback on that, because I am wearing right now my patch. I don't know if you guys can see that, but this is an iontophoresis patch. So there's actually a little battery and some wires here in the center going to a reservoir. And inside my patch is, and it was from Buzz, so thanks, Buzz, is something called NAD plus and glutathione. And I know NAD plus has a lot to do with this cytokine storm you talk about with neuropathy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Tell people what NAD is. And
yeah, so NAD is very important. It's the coenzyme that makes your Krebs cycle work, which your Krebs cycle is how your body takes fats, carbohydrates, and proteins and produces energy. So think of your mitochondria, that's like the heart of your cell. And NAD is what makes that heart work. And, as we age, I think I told you, from the time we're born, every 5 years, our NAD levels decrease 20% from the time we're born. So NAD levels are a hallmark or marker of aging. And that's why as we age, our metabolism slows down. It's one of the reasons we don't heal as well. It affects lots of other things. But the problem is you can't take it orally. It's not bioavailable orally. So really the only way you can get NAD prior to us coming with the iontop patch is you could do an IV. And the IV is effective, Mark. But the downside of the IV is, as you can imagine, NAD is such a powerful molecule and has such effect on the mitochondria. You have to do that IV over 4 hours. And if you try to rush the IV, you feel terrible. Your gut will hurt, lots of bad, you just don't feel good. Although once that wears off, you feel great, but the process kind of stinks. And it's a 4-hour IV.
And who wants to sit for 4 hours?
So the iontophoresis patch is a 12-hour patch. So it slowly releases, and you can't use an iontophoresis patch for everything. So the reason it works so well with NAD and glutathione is the molecular size is very small, and they both have positive charges. So the efficacy of the ionto patch is equal to the IV. You're getting the exact same dose as IV because of particle size and because of that. And really, if you think the ionto is even better, Mark, because the other thing that consider here is NAD, the half-life of that molecule in the body is 1 to 2 hours. So basically, the way half-life works, that means if you took 100 milligrams of NAD and an hour later, now you're only getting the effect of 50 milligrams. Mm-hmm. And an hour later, you're getting 25 milligrams because that's how half-lives work. And usually have 5 half-lives and it's gone. If you're wearing a 12-hour patch, you're getting the physiological or the pharmacokinetics effect over 12 hours plus. Mm-hmm. So that's a much better effect on the cells. And the same thing with glutathione. Glutathione, depending on the research, the half-life is between 10 and 90 minutes, depending on what you read. So once again, having that 12-hour window to affect the cells is amazing. And, the people that are really good candidates for it is really anyone who wants to biohack or feel good. I mean, maybe you can talk about your experience, Mark. What did you notice when you wore the patches?
I would say slept like a baby, number one. And I traveled time zone to time zone. So slept like a baby. Focus, really help with focus. The afternoon dip that sometimes you'd get, and no afternoon dip. So energy stays stable all day, and then slept well. So it's, you mentioned the A2M that you feel it right away.
Yes.
This thing, you feel it. Like you put it on, I don't think it's psychological. I think after a short while of this being on, you really feel it.
100%. Yeah. So I do recommend, that just like whether you're doing the IV or the patch, you do want to load someone in the beginning. So I would recommend wearing the patch 3 days in a row to get their levels up. But once they're up,
that's what I did. Yeah. 3 days and then do once a week. Right.
Yeah. I wear mine on Mondays usually. As I said, this weekend, I had a couple cocktails on Saturday night. So I wore it to bed Saturday night because the glutathione gets rid of the acetaldehyde poison that alcohol has in it. So it's also good for hangovers, but that's not why we're talking about. But the people that benefit is anyone, I think the way I try to explain it, it's kind of like you're taking an Adderall, but you can sleep. So it's not a stimulant, you don't feel jittery, but you just feel very mentally clear.
Yeah. That's what I would say. Clarity. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously biohacker, someone that wants to perform, like type A people that really want to be on their A game all the time. Yeah. But it's also really good. I treat a bunch of people with long COVID. Those people, their mitochondria are wrecks. This is like a lifesaver for those people. And it's also amazing for anyone that has neuropathy, because if you look at, what causes neuropathy, it basically, decreased circulation, decreases NAD at the cellular level, and the decrease in NAD is what causes the nerves to die.
Yeah.
So your docs are doing whatever they're doing to restore circulation, whether they're doing rebuilders or synexis and lasers and shock. All those things are good, right? So they all work. They all restore circulation. But if the person has really, diminished NAD levels, the results won't be great. So you got to restore circulation and restore those NAD levels. And the patches do contain glutathione too. And the reason for that, Mark, is very important. When you speed up the Krebs cycle, you will have a little more oxidative stress, and glutathione is the master antioxidant. So you want to have that in there. And everyone, you can use glutathione anyways. It's who doesn't want glutathione?
If you've ever had it, again, it's one of the things in IV nutrition therapy. Everybody likes a little glutathione push in there.
Yeah. So you want to have it with, anytime you do NAD, you want to do glutathione with it. You always want glutathione anyways. But on your people that have neuropathy, in particular, the chemical neuropathies, the chemoneuropathies are the ones that are really, really tough to treat. And the chemotherapy causes so much oxidative stress. And the only way you can reverse that is you got to have a bunch of glutathione. So any of your docs that are doing neuropathy, the NAD patches are game changers for those patients. Like, it really changes their life. Like, it's just amazing. And in particular, like the chemo-based ones, like that, those are the ones that are the most difficult. You put them on NAD glutathione, like you get real changes real quick.
I love it. And so in a bunch of states, the iontophoresis patch is something that a chiro can actually do. I know we typically think of these therapies in terms of multidisciplinary practice. But this is something, and check your state law, check with your coach, but is something that you can do in your DC practice.
Yeah, so NAD and glutathione, any chiropractor can give those out. So there's no restrictions on that. The iontophoresis patch, it is a prescription device, but most states chiropractors are able to give those out. But I'm definitely not an attorney, so I would check with your state board. But if your state board allows you to dispense the iontophoresis patches, then this is something that you can use for your patients. I have a lot of my patients, anyone that's in my regen program or neuropathy, I put them on the patches because once you kind of get them hooked on it, they don't want to stop. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know firsthand. So
Yeah.
it just helps them heal better too. So it's a good thing and help, anything that helps people feel better. Why not? And the patches are definitely inexpensive for the doctors. There's a nice profit margin built in there for them. I have an auto debit system set up in my clinic. So if patients get on the
Yeah.
auto debit system, they save some money and it's worked out great.
That's the way to do it. I love it. Well, I think you have contact information coming up, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. If anyone has questions, that's my cell phone. They can call my cell as long as they're members with you, they can call my cell phone. And anyone who is with your coaching program, they get tier 3 pricing all the time, which is my best pricing. So but they got to mention it. They're with Breakthrough Coaching
Yep.
to get that pricing because otherwise I won't know. But just hey, I'm calling with Breakthrough Coaching. Can you explain the products and what's my pricing? And I'll definitely take good care of your people. And if they have any questions about implementation, I have 8 offices of my own. I've been doing it for a while. I can definitely talk them through pricing or anything that they might need.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference between somebody who just sells kits and somebody who's actually in the field doing it and using it and interacting with patients. Part of this stuff, this regenerative medicine stuff, is that as you do it more, your certainty grows. And as you become a little more certain, like the first time you do PRP, you're like, maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not going to work. Same thing with all of them. But as you begin doing them and your certainty grows, your staff's certainty grows, you begin to see patients referring other patients in. It's really a cool cycle that happens. And so to have somebody like Buzz as a coach who can help you through those initial stages, kind of getting your baby steps until you start to run with it is let me tell you, it's the greatest gift you could have. So Buzz, you're super with always being there for our folks. And I know they'll call with like just the smallest question, like what kind of supplies do I need to have to get into? And you're so patient and kind with all of them. We appreciate that so much.
Yeah, I work 7 days a week. Call me anytime. If I'm busy, I won't answer, but I'll call you back for sure. Just leave a message on my phone. And just keep here in mind, like the beauty of this whole regen space is like medicine has no solutions. If someone has arthritis,
right,
and they don't do A2M and PRP, they're going to replace a joint at some point. It's that
yep.
simple. If someone has neuropathy and they don't end up in one of your doctor's clinics, they're going to end up with the amputations downstream. There is no medical solution. There is no alternative. There other than joint replacement, and with neuropathy, there is no option. So that's why getting into this space, it goes. We sell to orthopedic surgical groups and a bunch of other groups, but the chiropractors always do the best because this all fits in line with what we believe. We're helping the body heal itself.
Absolutely. And listen, they're coming to you with low back pain. And how many of these people have extra weight on? And that absolutely gets absorbed in the knees. And so it is absolutely should be part of your screening process to make sure we recommend outcome assessment questionnaires. Use those for the knees, screen people out, take scouting views of the knees. You're going to see there's a ton of OA, osteoarthritis in your practice. And this is the only stuff, just as Buzz said, the only stuff that can get you in front of it. And we know early intervention with OA is absolutely essential. The longer it goes, the harder it is to fix until you can't fix it.
Yeah, and this is reversible. Just like type 2 diabetes is fully reversible with diet and nutrition, osteoarthritis is reversible. Degenerative joint disease is reversible. You got to catch it in time. Once the joint is destroyed, you can't build the joint back. But I've seen joints that are literally look like bone on bone, but there's good integrity of the bones. You save those joints. So this is real. And if you're not integrated, like integration just means having a nurse practitioner in your office 1 or 2 days a month to start. Like it's really not complicated, very easy to do.
Yeah, or one or 2 half days a month to even start. And you pretty soon you'll have them there all day.
Yeah, so this is like I know when I first was integrating, it was like daunting, another provider there, but like really, it's just like another. I hate to similar. It's like having another ultrasound machine there, or another roller bed. It's just
Yep.
another modality that you offer.
Yeah. Except for they're really, really smart. And it's
Yeah.
great to interact on a professional level like that with somebody who's at that level. It's really a
But
cool.
they love this stuff, Mark. I'm telling you,
Oh,
like
yeah.
NPs and I have an MD, but I recommend NPs. They love it because they come from the medical model when nothing works.
Yeah.
So they start doing some A2M injections, some PRP injections, and get people better instead of using cortisone or Synvisc, which doesn't last. Like they love their jobs, so it's a win-win.
Yeah. I love it. It's very cool. I'm obviously very excited about it. So cool stuff. Hey, Buzz, thanks for spending time with us.
No, thank you. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to call me on my cell phone, shoot me an email, and I'll do whatever I can to help you out.
All right, man. Appreciate you very much. This is Dr. Mark Sanna for the Level Up podcast for Breakthrough Coaching. Make today an exceptional day. Thank you.